All right. Well, Mr. Pike, thank you so much.
Hi, Lance.
Yes, thanks for jumping on with me here. And I'm excited for the broader Kula community to learn a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do with Kula. So if you don't mind, introduce yourself. Give us a little background of who you are.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So my name is Bill Pike. I'm the head of operations at Kula. My background, well, I'm in London at the moment. I say at the moment, I'm nearly always in London, except for when I'm off seeing.
I was guessing Texas. No, I'm just kidding.
It's the accent. Now, I was born in Birmingham, so I should have a very, one of those, right, how you doing, like accents that we have over here in the UK, but I didn't ever pick it up. So, yeah, I'm based in London. I've spent the last 35 years working in banking in a range of roles. I've worked on big corporates, I've worked on small business, I've done relationship management, I've done credit roles, I've run teams, I've been in product areas, operational areas, strategy areas. And after all of that time, it was I was looking for a change, and I went to work for a very I was working for a very big bank, so I went to work for a very small bank. Spent 4 years there, loved it, loved the values, loved the culture, loved the way they were growing that business over the last 4 years, and then I got this opportunity to join Kula.
So here at Kula, you are the head of the Operation Guild, I believe. Is that the
That's
correct
correct. Yeah.
verbiage?
Yes.
So what does that mean? What does that mean, operations within Kula?
Yeah, so I think I wear three hats at the moment. My primary role is going to be to help to manage the relationships we have with companies we have invested in, to talk to them regularly, to go out and see them, to help them find whatever it is they need to keep growing and to fill their potential. And that's very similar to the role I used to do as a bank manager, walking around businesses and talking to the owner managers and trying to work out how they scale. The other role I have, I link very closely in with Ed on the investment side. So when he and his team are getting to that point where they think, there's something here we think we want to invest, then I'd like to have a kind of input into that, be chatting that through with them, go out and do the due diligence kind of visits, either with them or for them, depending on who's got the most time available. Kick the tires on the business, have a walk around, look into the whites of the eyes of the owner managers, make sure it's all kind of as you'd expect. In banking, we used to talk a lot about the character of the management team and the capability of the management team just as much as the business. So that's the second hat. And then the third hat is actually kind of almost internal and inward looking in Kula, and is trying to help build the operations of Kula as we grow. So whatever that involves at the time, I will be helping Paul Jackson and the rest of the team to kind of get stuff done.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that you're the guy who your team's responsible for once we decide on capital deployment of where we're investing, you're making sure that the money's doing what they say it's going to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will do the onboarding process working alongside our legal and compliance teams, and obviously the investment team that's kind of negotiated the deal. So make sure we dot I's, cross T's, and we've signed up for what we thought we signed up for. And then we will have, milestones and deliverables, and we'll be tracking that, whether that's through kind of traditional financial and management information from talking to the teams directly, or from some of the impact metrics that we're going to be plugging into directly as well.
Currently within Kula, help me out. We're in Zambia, Nepal. We have some opportunities there.
Yeah.
But then there's also Enzi in
Yes, in
Kenya.
Kenya, absolutely.
So did you help bring about Enzi? Is that correct?
No, I joined as it was kind of coming on board, so I heard a lot
Okay.
about it, but I wasn't directly involved in that. But what I did get to do before I joined Kula was I took some leave from my kind of then job, and I went out to Kenya and visited the team out there, and saw the sites they've got and saw the bikes, and got a really good grounding. So that was great. So got in there pretty much near ground zero, but not on day one.
I would love if we spent a little bit of time talking Enzi and the electric bike company. For a little context where I'm at, I'm from the Midwest of the United States. And so when I hear electric bikes, I'm thinking, are those the kids running around town on scooters? Is that what's going on here? Help me understand this company that we invested in?
Sure. Yeah. No, they're not little scooters. They are really powerful, very robust bikes built for the kind of Kenyan roads and hillsides. And I've seen one of these things kind of powering up a hill, and they've got a lot of power and a lot of grip to get up there with a rider who might have another rider as a passenger, or might be shifting some goods, or delivering a package of some sort. So
Yeah, because essentially it's like a transportation company. Is that
you
close?
can look at it in all sorts of ways. So you can look at it as a transportation company. You could actually look at it more as a battery as a service company. Each bike comes with two batteries. There's the one on the bike that it's using, and there's the one that's kind of on the shelf that's being charged, ready to swap. And obviously they're not individual to the bikes. It's a pool. But the riders will ride around doing whatever they're doing, and they could be on a ride hailing app, or they could be standing on the Boda stand in their local kind of community, and people coming up to them saying, "Oh, can you take me here?" or "Can you take this package there?" or "Can you go to the butcher's and pick up my Sunday lunch and bring it back?" It's really embedded into the community in Nairobi, and there's, I think it's 1.5 to 2 million kind of Boda drivers in Kenya kind of doing this as a service. And so ENS is providing the bike that can be strong enough to do that, and be more efficient from a return for the driver, because they're all spending all their money on diesel and petrol, and that's $16 billion a year leaving the Kenyan economy to go to the states that produce all the oil and the diesel. Whereas by converting it to electricity, a number of things happen. So one, it's obviously better for the environment. Secondly, it's actually cheaper for the rider, and they might make an extra $1,000 a year, which, if you're not making very many thousand, that's a big step. I think it's 50% extra that they get in their pocket by doing it this way. And then ultimately, what NZ wants to become is effectively like a battery as a service company. So use solar power to charge those batteries, and then you're selling sunshine rather than selling oil.
So, and I just want to push into this a little bit more to help my understanding as well as some of our investors here. So, when we talk about Boda drivers, help me understand the grasp of that. I've heard it described as almost even like kind of the Uber of Eastern Africa. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, obviously, Uber drivers is based on a car economy, and these are motorbikes. But yes, it's people whose job it is to ferry you or your stuff around, and they're doing that. And as I said, some of them will kind of have a pitch, almost like a stand that they're always at, and people will come up to them and say, "Hey, how are you doing? And can you take me here? And can you take me there?" Others will be on an app, waiting for the rides to come in. But I've heard people in Kenya talk about my Boda driver. Their local Boda driver is someone they know, they trust, who they go to again and again to do these small errands or trips, or ferry them around.
Yeah. So we inject capital in this battery swapping industry, essentially. How do funds end up coming back into the Kula treasury? What does those mechanics look like?
Yeah, so we're investing in helping NZ to grow, and at the moment that does mean that we're putting some money into buying bikes before riders can buy them, and to buy batteries,
Hmm.
which NZ effectively own. And ultimately, we'd like to see those bikes financed by the finance companies, and the batteries owned by an asset-backed lender, and we'll move on to that. The way that the money then comes back is the riders obviously need electricity in their batteries, and so they will run around until, and there's lots of electronics on the bike, so they know kind of what's going on. But they'll run around until their battery gets to a certain level, and then they will pull up to a battery swap station, and NZ will have batteries sitting there charged and ready for them. And effectively, you unplug the one on the bike, you plug in the fully charged one, and off they go. And you start charging up the one they've just given you, so it's ready for the next rider, or the one after that. The riders are paying, whatever it is, $4 a pop to have a fully charged battery. Effectively, they're paying for the electricity.
Okay, so the cash flow becomes every battery swap, Kula collects a transaction on that.
Yes, and the figures at the moment are, it's more than one a day. It's not quite two a day, but it's more than one a day. Battery swaps per
Okay.
bike. The batteries are good, the bikes are good. They've got a good range on them, but these guys are out there, earning hard from morning till night. So they'll have to do one swap, sort of not quite two swaps a day. So it's kind of, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a really interesting business model. How does this benefit? So I know one of the core tenets of Kula is we always identify, and Ed spoke to us about this a little bit, identifying a local community who's impacted by the investment. So in this case, the local community is who?
Yeah, so from a kind of community point of view, then you've got probably three different kind of groups, and they're slightly overlapping, but you've got 40 jobs created in Nairobi, in NZ itself. So that's clearly a massive impact for those people that have got jobs. You've then got the riders who are out there on the bikes, on the NZ bikes, and they're making more money, and they're working with people who've got strong values and have their best interests at heart. And then you've got almost like a wider community. So what NZ does is they run something called Tech Talks, where they train the riders up on topics like business management and financial kind of literacy, even safer riding skills and first aid, customer service, and how to get the best out of their bike. And I know when we were out there in kind of November, December, one of the guys was literally saying, I didn't understand how indicators on my bike worked until they told me. So
Oh no.
you just take stuff for granted, and it's not until you kind of sit and talk to these guys that you realize how much they're learning. So ENS is doing that and trying to make sure these people are well looked after and are safe, both for
Yeah.
themselves and everyone
Because
else.
it's all essentially every driver is like an independent contractor,
Exactly
correct?
right. They're self-employed effectively. They buy their bike and they tout for business. It's a hard life.
So what does the growth potential look like for NZ?
Yeah, so at the moment they've got just over 50 bikes on the road, and then there's 100 that have just got into customs in Nairobi, and as soon as those clear, they'll go to kind of Enzi's plant for assembly, along with all the electronics that's are added, and the batteries will get taken off and charged, ready to be used, and everything. And then there's 100 more on the water from China as we speak. So they'll be getting into Kenya. I think they're coming to Mombasa. So they'll be coming into Kenya soon. And then again, they have to kind of go by train over to Nairobi. And the plan is to order two more batches of 100 over the next kind of 3 to 6 months. So effectively, that's 50 to 450 in the space of 6 months. That's a ninefold increase, and that starts to give them some scale where that battery swap revenue we talked about is then adding up to a meaningful sum to kind of run the company with. But actually, what you want to do is keep rolling out more bikes as quickly as you can, which means then finding other partners for the bike finance and the battery finance, so that we're not tying up our capital in those, but we're using our capital to fuel the growth of NZ itself.
You said we're in Nairobi, correct? Do you see that staying in Nairobi, or is this a business model that we're planning on plug and play in
Oh,
different areas?
it's definitely, the ambition is to move it further. So they've already got a couple of pilots. There's one in a town, I think it's 200 miles away from Nairobi, which is looking at using the bikes for kind of local agricultural purposes, to move milk around and to move some of the, it's not a vet, but it's somebody who's working with the cattle around, and that's going well. But ultimately, yes, you'd move it out to other cities in Kenya and then into other countries that border onto Kenya. But there's infrastructure costs that go into that, so you've got to build your revenue stream first, grow it as big as you can, and then you can start to kind of scale to other locations.
Bill, this is great. You're getting me excited about electric scooters. Just kidding.
They're not
I don't mean to keep
scooters.
calling them. They're not scooters. Okay, not they're not scooters.
It's like these things look like they're not. They haven't got the drop handlebars, but they are big bikes, right?
I'm just being tongue in cheek on that because I understand. This is one of the things I love about Kula is I feel like even the concept of what we were doing, we were ahead of our time. But all the roads seem to be heading this direction, and it kind of feels like the same with Enzi. They're ahead of the game, but clearly in the EV world, this is the direction, and they're just scaling it to the need there in Africa. So
Yeah, I mean, there was some stats that came out. I think the motorcycle market in Kenya grew 145% last year, and 15% of that market was EV motorcycles, which doesn't sound a lot, but it was zero like a few years ago. So you've got a rapidly growing market and a rapidly growing subsector within that. So the fundamentals are good because you need to move off oil and onto electric for the. And if you're in Kenya and the sun shines every day, why wouldn't you power your bike off light? So the fact they've got the technology to do it is amazing.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So how would you say, and I guess just kind of sum it up, so how does the NZ partnership really demonstrate Kula's approach in this whole way? How would you put a bow on that?
Yeah, and this might not be the best language to use at the current time, but when we invest, it's not like a fire and forget missile where you just kind of pull the trigger and you just kind of wait for the impact. It doesn't work like that. We work really closely with the companies that we invest in to help encourage and support them to achieve their goals. And we're speaking online throughout the month. I mean, I think I spoke to Masayoki and Bill pretty much weekly in the last 2 months. We're aiming to visit regularly, so I've been out once. I'll be going out again soon, and we're looking at how do we help this company grow. We're not just here's some money, get on with it. We're like, do you know these people? Have you thought about this? Have you tried that? Now, most of the time they have thought about it and they have tried it because they're really smart people, but it only takes a couple of those kind of connections and ideas, and you really help lift a company up. So the focus for us at the moment, as I said, is to bring in the finance partners that can help share that kind of load as we scale, and then help them go on to that next stage, reach big enough to break even, and then go beyond that to, as you exactly identified, Lance, roll out to other countries.
So then within your role, so do you create like financial benchmarks that they have to hit annually or quarterly, or how do we look at this in 2 years and determine the success rate?
Yeah, so there's a plan, and our investment is a phased investment. So we have four equal tranches of $500,000. So the first tranche went in when we signed. Another tranche goes in when there's 100 bikes on the road, and then 200 bikes, and then 300 bikes. So you're trying to make sure that there's a sensible kind of rollout plan, and then we will have access to the management accounts and the impact reporting that goes with it, so we can, to your point, make sure that the company is achieving the goals it needs to, or if it's slightly off, understand why and whether we're comfortable with that, or how we help, or how we course correct, or whatever it might be.
I love that. Just kind of on a personal front for you, Bill. I know you spoke a lot about you're a financial brilliant man. Even Ed spoke very, very highly of you.
I had to pay a lot of
Um,
money for that.
okay. How do you measure the balance in especially within your role in operations, between financial performance and impact? Because sometimes those are in opposition of one another.
I think sometimes they are, but for anything to be long term successful, it has to be viable and it has to be profitable. So NZ will have way more impact in East Africa if they can come up with a profitable, thriving, growing model, because then they will actually be able to self-invest. I mean, I've seen the model. I've kind of crawled all over it, Masayoki, about how many bikes does it take, and when do you get to that point where actually you're throwing off so much profit and so much cash, you can pay for your own batteries and your own bikes and cut out the people who are helping you now, and then ultimately then roll out to other cities and other countries. So you can't do that on handouts. You can only do that if you're creating profit and creating wealth and creating,
Hmm.
you want boda drivers that are motivated. I mean, Musioki's got this brilliant kind of model where he's looking at what do I need in a boda driver to be successful, because the ones that ride the furthest need the most electricity, and therefore NZ makes the most money. So you don't want people that are falling asleep at it's not the wheel, is it? It's the handlebars. But you do want people that understand that just standing on the street corner and waiting for the business to come to you isn't going to necessarily get you enough revenue to send your kids to school or buy yourself a house. Whereas if you do your 120, 150K a day, then actually you make good money, and you can then move on and up in the world. So I don't see them as conflicting, but I think you have to have a degree of compassion and understanding that it's not like you can just walk down the road and do this easily, like perhaps we might take for granted in our countries. There are barriers to this, and there's reasons why it's hard, and there's reasons why people don't have necessarily done this yet. So you're marrying reality, realism, with compassion and drive and support, so that everyone does well, everyone wins effectively.
So I have to ask you, as the man who helps roll out these projects and brings them to life, are there any of these projects you're getting excited about through the rest of 2026?
Yeah, there's one actually. I can't mention names, but we're talking to somebody that one of the founders has known for a long, long time, and they're in the coffee business. They started off in China, and they've built a business in China, and it's a meaningful business. It's got real revenue, and real profits, and they're really trying to make sure that the people who grow the coffee beans and pick the coffee beans actually are treated well and treated fairly. But in all of these industries, the value chain, it's usually the people at the bottom that do least well, and it's the people further up the value
Hmm.
chain that do
And they
better.
also happen to do the most work. Yeah.
Exactly. So you work hard and you get the least, and then the people that kind of add the value up the way, which is not easy. But would you rather be picking coffee beans or roasting coffee beans? I know which I'd rather do, and the roasters make way more than the pickers do, and the traders make more than the pickers do, and people who store it in warehouses make more than the pickers do. So he's been and done it, and he's phenomenal knowledge of coffee, and he's moved from China to Kenya a couple of years ago, and he's looking to replicate the model, and he can do it. He can do it on his own, but he could do it quicker if we help him. And I'm really excited about that. And I'm out in Kenya in just over a month's time, and I can't wait to see him and go around and see what he's doing so far, and to sort of discuss how much we can help him go faster.
If you were sitting across from the table this afternoon from somebody who's been invested in Kula for the last 2.5 years, what would you tell them to get excited about here in the near future?
I think the excitement is the potential. So you've got all these parts of the world that've got natural resources, they've got agriculture, they've got minerals, they've got all the things that everybody needs. But because the traditional approach has been that people go over and they exploit it and they take it and they disappear, and we've got a real opportunity to do this the right way, to make sure that some of that wealth stays behind for the community, make sure that roads, schools, hospitals are built, make sure that people do pick up business skills that they can then use to scale businesses, move out into other countries, repeat, copy paste, as you said. But equally, this doesn't happen overnight. This is not some kind of get rich overnight scheme, because it takes time to build a business. It takes time to mine something or build something or grow something, and to do it well and to do it right. So I think you need to have patient capital if you want to be, involved, and I think you need to understand that this is not about just what's in it for us. It's about what's in it for everyone.
I know even throughout the next few months, next even years coming through, you are the boots on the ground in terms of even being that business coach, and accountability for all of our individual investments. And so I would love even you jumping on when the next one launches and fill us in all the way through. So
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And if that coffee investment comes off the way Ed and I hope, then we can take you through the stages as we go.
all this coffee talk just reminded me that my cup's already cold now. I'm gonna have to take care of that. So, well, Bill, thank you very, very much, and yeah, thanks for being just a good steward of our investments and leading the way on the ground.
Yeah, you're welcome. And can I take this opportunity to thank our investors as well? Because obviously, without them, none of this happens. And I really do hope that working in partnership, we can change. We can really change bits of Africa and Asia and the rest of the world, and see people really prosper and thrive.
Come on, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.